are live on both platforms. Again, thank you so much for tuning in to the Love Session Podcast. I am your host, Jeremy J. Robson. Howard coming to you live. And like the song says, you're good enough. So tonight's topic is going to be love and anxiety. Identifying anxiety and other mental afflictions and incorporating it with dating. This is your boy Jeremy J. Robinson Howard coming to you live. Thank you for tuning in to the Love Session, the crossover episode coming soon to iTunes and Spotify. Yes, so what are anxieties, one might ask, and other mental afflictions? Well, there are several things dealing with those that we're going to actually address tonight. Grab a notepad, I got a lot of notes. And so basically, we're going to identify the signs of anxiety, the symptoms of anxiety, the effects of anxiety, the types of anxiety. All right. So again, thank you all for tuning in to the Love Session Podcast. I'm your host, Jeremy J. Roxham Howard. So the first thing is, what is anxiety? Anxiety can be identified as several things in regards to the definition, but we're going to actually give you the book definition for anxiety. So anxiety is a is an emotion characterized by an unpleasant state of inner turmoil, often accompanied by nervous behavior such as a pacing back and forth, somatic complaints, and rumination. It includes subjectively unpleasant feelings or dread over anticipated events. So, everybody is experiencing anxiety, one part or another in their lives. And depending on your growing up, your background, where you've lived at, where you live at now, where you work at, you can possibly still have anxieties. Me, I have had several anxieties before. Um, when I worked on the Homeland Security, uh, once your eyes have been opened up to Pandora's box about potential threats, you really can never go back into society without being aware. And sometimes I wish I could turn it off, but when I see certain things, certain behaviors, I automatically go in red flag mode and I observe people. And actually, due to being exposed to that job, it's actually saved my life and others' lives. There was an instance in Destin, Florida. No, we were in, no, not Destin, we were in Panama City, Florida. Me and some of my fraternity brothers and sisters, and we went to this club. Now, mind you, this is spring break. All right, this is April, March, April. So it's hot in Florida. And we go in, and we get to this club, we were club hopping, bar hopping, and it was just one guy, um, happened to be white. Um, now, mind you, it's about 75 degrees, 75, 76 degrees. He's in a all black club with combat boots, chains, and a trench coat, just pacing in the corner back and forth, back and forth. So all the real Negroes who done lived around something, experienced something, and seen something. As soon as we hit the door, this dude stood up. He was a red flag, just blinking. It was kind of comical as we see all the majority of the black people who'd been around some stuff. And so they, hey, hey, and they automatically fix their attention on that guy who was out of place. And it was like, why are you in? Not saying that people don't commingle with clubs, but he was really out of place. He wasn't friendly. He was just pacing back and forth. He wasn't speaking to nobody. And so everybody was watching. I'm like, man, what's this dude's problem? And turns out he was actually going to try to create some type of hate crime. He had about 12 knives on him. Thank God he didn't have any guns. And he planned on doing something, but I guess he was trying to hype himself up. And when security asked him to calm down, He swung out the right one, and did what they had to do. But just being aware. So social anxiety. So we're going to start off with signs of anxiety. All right. Now, the several signs for anxiety: lack of focus, having no energy, nervous, irritable, sweaty, fidgety, afraid, and restless. So, majority of people experience all those in some shape, form, or fashion, uh, dealing with some type of anxiety. All right. So, what are some of the symptoms of anxiety? Some of the symptoms are insomnia, you get sick easily, lack of appetite, overeating, upset stomach, heart racing, decreased sexual appetite or desire, headaches. Now, all have experienced some shape, form, or fashion of those symptoms, dealing for whatever reasons. Now, some of the effects of anxiety on the body are confusion, emotional imbalances, erratic decisions, forgetfulness, anger, depression, and panic attacks. I don't know if you ever experienced a panic attack for whatever reason, but it feels like you are having literally a heart attack. You lose your breath, you can't see straight, you get weak, you can't stand up, and you're heading towards something to try to stabilize yourself. Chest, heart racing for whatever reason. Um, and there are actual several types of anxiety. Uh, GAD, that is general, gen- excuse me, excuse me. Okay, let me try that again. All right, so the first type is generalized anxiety disorder, commonly known as GAG, and that's when a person feels anxious on most days, worrying about lots of different things for a period of 6 months or more. So, but especially with the events that are going on now, a lot of people have experienced some form of GAD due to COVID. Some people, I know a lot of people who have social anxieties for several reasons. And social anxiety is a person that has an intense fear of being criticized, embarrassed, or humiliated, even in everyday situations, such as speaking publicly, eating in public, being assertive at work, or making small talk. Um, I know for me personally, growing up before I became outspoken, I experienced this. A severe form of this. I really couldn't stand talking in front of people, but I love to sing. And actually, singing actually helped me get to the point where I was able to cocoon and doing and get involved with other projects and things of that nature. Um, Now, the next one is specific phobias, and there are several phobias. Some people have a germophobia, kissing phobias because of the fear of catching things. There are several phobias out there. A person feels very fearful about a particular object or situation and may go to great lengths to avoid it. For example, having an injection or traveling on a plane. There are many types of phobias. I actually dated a person that had a phobia about bridges. So whenever we traveled, she would act a donkey when it came to coming over a bridge. And I never necessarily could understand her fear. And sad to say, I wasn't as understanding, but I was able to get to the point where I was more empathetic and we were able to go through and work through it as traveling. And especially by her living where she lives now with her fiance. Um, Hopefully she's gotten over that fear because I know he be catching it, baby. Okay, now the next one is a panic disorder. Um, Now, a panic disorder is a person has panic attacks, which are intense, overwhelming, and often uncomfortable feeling of anxiety combined with a range of physical symptoms. Someone having a panic attack may experience shortness of breath, chest pain, dizziness, and excessive perspiration. Sometimes people experiencing a panic attack think they're having a heart attack or they're about to die. If a person has a recurrent panic attack, or persistently fears having one or more than a month, they are said to have a panic disorder. All right. And I know I've definitely had that before. I remember the first time that I potentially spotted an IED at a job site. And when I say, Lord have mercy, that was a gauntlet of emotions. Um, once at that particular time, we were at threat level orange, and I was on a federal. It was a it was considered a federal facility, and somebody, a shady person who ended up being a contractor, not in uniform, was up there walking around that where he was supposed to be, and put down a backpack, and walked away. You don't know where he went. It took us a few hours to come down. And when you're on sites and when you got to make those phone calls, you see that protocol. We had to cord it off. It was horrible. It was horrible. And thank God it wasn't um, something that could have been horrible. When you're around a facility like that, you're dealing around with chemicals. Um, it's a very humbling experience when you walk to your job and you see a kill zone radius. So basically, like if you don't bring your A game today and you've allowed something to happen, the first 3 miles are going to be up in completely flames. The fallout, everybody within a 360-degree radius is going to die. It's no survivors, it's nothing. And depending on when the wind carries, what goes up in flames, that's going to determine how many other people die. And you see all these hospitals, schools, nursing homes, and it's a very sombering experience when you're dealing with a high stress job like that. And to bring your A game, okay, and that was yeah, that's something I don't necessarily miss. I liked the responsibility in a sense, but the stress was just horrible. Okay, now there's some other types of anxiety. Um, Obsessive compulsive disorder. Everybody's experienced somebody like that in some way, shape, or form or fashion. And that's a person that has an ongoing, unwanted slash intrusive thoughts and fears that cause anxiety. Although the person may acknowledge these through the thoughts as silly, they often try to relieve their anxiety by carrying out certain behaviors or rituals. For example, a fear of germs and contamination can lead to constant washing of hands and clothes. Um, I'm sure somebody has experienced a relative at some point. If you visit their house, if they don't, if their things aren't exactly where they put it, you barely touch it. I mean, it's pandemonium. Who touched my things? Who moved my things? Don't touch my things. Leave my things alone. You know, everybody's experienced that at some point, shape, form, or fashion. I know I have. I got a Lord have mercy. You could sneeze too hard, and she just just playing, not necessarily sneezing, but if you touch her stuff, she gonna tell you about it. PTSD. PTSD. And a lot of people think PTSD as is something just to deal with people in the military. And it's not. Everybody goes through, well, I'm not saying everybody, but people can experience a lot of PTSD. A lot of people from the hood got PTSD. If you didn't have to shoot at somebody, you'd have been shot at, you'd have been in a car that's been shot at, you'd have been in a club that's been shot up. Yeah, yes, that's a part of that. This can happen after a person experiences a traumatic event, i.e., war, assault, accident, disaster. Symptoms can include difficulty relaxing, upsetting dreams, or flashbacks of the event, and avoidance of anything related to the event. PTSD is diagnosed when a person has symptoms for at least a month. So everybody's been in that club before, whether it was with a relative, a homeboy. You just saw that one person in the club that just can't relax for whatever reason. They are always just uptight, moving. They think everybody looking at them funny. They try to fight everybody that look at them. It's just, you know, what's your deal? You know, for the life of me, I can understand why certain people would do certain things. Uh, we try to get them a beer or something to get them to calm down because You can tell certain people if they're left to their own devices, they're going to get amped up to the point where they're going to get violent and possibly hurt themselves or others in the club. And, you try to put them on a girl. Hey, man, what I'm saying? Dance with my homegirl. No, let me get you a beer. What you want to drink? Uh, you help those you can, and others you just got to stay clear and be aware of. All right. So those are the several types of anxieties, and also sexual traumas could be involved with that as well. Um, so now that we've identified the symptoms, uh, the signs of anxieties, the symptoms, the effects, the types, what are some of the treatments for these different types of anxieties and mental issues? Okay, now there are several forms of that to try to help people, um, as well as different delivery options. Some people prefer to work one on one with a professional, while others get more out of a group environment. And a growing number of online programs or e therapies are also available. So you have CBTs, that is cognitive behavior therapy. It's basically a structured psychological treatment which recognizes that the way we think, cognition, and the act behavior affects the way we feel. CBT involves working with a professional therapist to identify thoughts and behavior patterns that are either making you more likely to become anxious or stop you from getting better when you're experiencing anxiety. Once you've recognized any helpful patterns, unhelpful patterns rather, that are contributed to your anxiety, you can make changes to replace these with new ones that reduce anxiety and improve your coping skills. All right, so that's one of the ways. For example, you might find yourself stuck in a catastrophe or thinking patterns that have you dreading things. This means thinking the worst, believing something is far worse than it actually is, um, or anticipating things will go wrong all the time. CBT helps by teaching you to think that more realistically and focusing on problem solving. And if you actively avoid situations or things that cause the anxiety, the CBT can actually help you face your fears and approach these situations more rationally. All right. Um, so those are very helpful. I've actually been a impromptu therapist. Having people write down certain things like, okay, um, what is the actual action that you're feeling? Okay, I'm feeling this, this, and that. Okay, what brings this on? Well, this happens when I'm XYZ. Okay. How do you think this came about? Okay. And then what do you think or what helps you get through this? And try to focusing on doing activities or avoiding certain things to try to help the behavior. And of course, you got your e therapies. Well, basically, you get with somebody online and you talk. Basically, instead of face to face, you basically video conferencing like I'm doing right now. And so those are some of the treatments uh, for anxieties. Now, the next part, the meat of it is how do you incorporate that with dating? Okay. So basically, I don't know if anybody's ever dated anybody who's experienced any type of trauma, whether it be sexual, physical, um, and mental uh, things of that nature. Um, I know I have in college, and more recently, uh, with dealing with like germophobia, things of that nature. Um, Now we're on to be around a lot of people because of things that have happened. Those things can happen. But how do you interact with somebody who has a type of phobia and not be as understanding or pushy? Everybody goes through things, and it's not for everybody to be able to understand everything. But it is within everybody to be empathetic and work with people as they are dealing and going through their trauma, trying to heal. So I'll say that again. It is not for everybody to understand why people go through what they're going through, but it is within us to be empathetic with them and work with them as they go through the healing of their trauma. So, one thing that I like to incorporate is actually talking about it. Okay. Um, especially around with COVID and people who actually have lost loved ones to the COVID, they can be very hesitant, especially when they're dating. Okay. Life is going to go on, but how do you date with COVID with this fear? And it's a rational fear because people are dying. Um, you've lost somebody in your family due to COVID. You know somebody firsthand who has died from COVID. Uh, so, how do you approach that knowing that, A, either you got eh, parents that have underlying issues like I do, you have young children, and you want your family to be around. So that's a very traumatic thing to be able to deal with in itself, going through the emotional realms of wanting to date, needing companionship, but also dealing with your family that you have to interact with daily because they help you in some capacity. And so basically, it's a very time consuming but worthwhile process with that. So, on that note, we're going to bring to the cocktail hour. So, today's cocktail was actually made with Svika, cucumber, and lime vodka. When I say this thing is who child, so basically, I did a simple concoction. I basically um, did 3 parts uh, vodka to 1.5 parts ginger ale over ice. This is my mug. Ah, crack it. Oh my God. When I say this is so refreshing, it tastes like a spiked spa water, but with more flavor. If you ever had that cucumber water with lime, you see, it have all taste, but with this baby, and alcohol is a lot stronger and it's still smooth and refreshing. So, cocktail hour. Okay. So, back on track. So, you have somebody that you're interested in, that you gone through the filter process, and that you know they're worth your time. Okay. But in order to get their time, you're going through a filtering process. Okay. The first thing is, are you sick? Do you have COVID? Okay. In my case, I have respiratory issues. I have asthma, and I be coughing. I've been coughing before COVID. I'll be coughing after COVID, unfortunately. But that's just a part of it. And so when dating with somebody, especially when they've gone through that traumatic experience of losing a close loved one, and they daily interact with somebody who has underlying conditions with their age or whatever factors, and they also have children, we as courters, whether male, female, whatever, we have to be understanding and willing to go through that process of being filtered. So you might go 2 or 3 weeks or more. And okay, they want to make sure that you're straight. And then the first encounter, you know, don't rush it. If they want to be around you in your space with a mask, let it be. It's nothing wrong with you social distancing, mask on at whatever location, and allowing that person to get comfortable with you. And as they continue to see you, observe you, and notice that you're not sick, she may check your temperature. He may take your temperature every time they see you. Okay, and as long as you're in the green, and then eventually they'll come to a realization or see that you're not sick, and things will get easier. But also, side note, when we are in these bubble spheres, as I call it, you got your people you interact with. She has the people she has to interact with. We really have to be considerate about when we go out and about. Okay, take your chances. And if you, for whatever reason, have to be around multiple people outside your bubble, don't be selfish and not go through the full waiting period, because you can actually burst her bubble by infecting her, and that instead affects their people, and somebody's life could be lost. Okay, I can understand people are young. Some people don't believe it's real. Okay, it ain't real. Co- COVID is as real as me being light skinned. Okay, so obviously I'm not light skinned. So obviously it must be real. Uh, yeah, uh, I don't understand the logic of it, but it is what it is. I digress. So when you're dating, you're dealing with somebody who has these anxieties. You have to make sure that you take the steps to protect that, because the last thing you want to do is go outside your bubble, and then that person may be asymptomatic, and then that you bring that to the next person, and then somebody loses their life because you didn't want to take the time to separate yourself after you were exposed. So, this, just keep that in mind. It might not be fun, you know, but you really have to be considerate and thoughtful when you're going through this process. So, like, yeah. So I'm not necessarily looking forward to me, because my job is about to get hectic, due to a season that's going to be very busy. So I got me a little excursion um, coming up, and I'm gonna have to watch myself, or keep myself around from my bubble for 2 additional weeks to make sure I'm straight. You know, I'm gonna go out. I'm gonna enjoy myself, uh, relax my mind, have some fun before I get into the meat of the season. Before, and that's gonna go from October to December. So um, really gonna be into it. But that's something that you have to be conscious of when you're dating people with anxieties. And I spoke about this particular phobia, but you have other people who might have fears or concerns about certain items. Some people don't want to go to clubs, large crowds. That's where the communication comes in. You have to be able to talk to somebody uh, and come up with a game plan together, to make sure that there are, first, comfortable, and two, working them within the realm of their issue. And we as courtiers, uh, love interests, we have to be empathetic and willing to work through that as they go through their healing process. Okay, it's not going to happen overnight. Lord knows we sometimes we wish it could happen overnight, but you have to be empathetic about that. All right. So that's what I have this evening. This one was a short one. Again, this was love and anxiety. So basically, again, we identified the types of anxieties, the symptoms, the whereabouts, and the potential treatments. And again, there are also other things with medication, and there are a lot of things that actually do help with anxiety that aren't really talked about. So uh, I know for me, the use of legal hemp really helps. They have droplet forms. That's to promote this brand. But I have this. I take these daily. Oh, oh, okay, hemp oil. The little eye droplets, and it really helps. Everybody has to go through their own dosage. I recommend a light dosage. With anything that you ingest, it can take time. If you get gummies and you chew it, it's going to hit you differently. But again, all this is legal. You can get this online, Amazon. And I would honestly talk with your doctor and your provider, and do your research before you try anything. And again, I would take the dosage slow. And as you learn how it affects you, you can increase and decrease as needed. For me, I've actually been able to take micro doses of this because of the potency of it, and it's actually been able to help me with my needs. Other people have higher dosage. It actually helps with back pain. I'm a large guy, working on it, um, but I have a lot of issues sometimes. Uh, Sometimes I feel like my grandparents, like, oh Lord, I can tell it's finna rain. Oh, my knee is aching. Once you have a surgery and your body's been exposed, it's not the same. You can tell when it's finna rain, it's finna get cold, because it's gonna affect you differently. But again, thank you all for those who tuned in tonight for Love and Anxiety. This is your boy J Rock signing out. Well, when keeping it real goes wrong. Okay, so here's my tune. Doop, doop, doo, doo. Doop, doop, doo, doo. Thank you. Doo, 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 doo. Appreciate you. Doop, doop, doo, doo. Doop, doop, doo, 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 doo. Doop, 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 doo. All right, this is your boy J Rock. Thank you so much for tuning to the love session, Love and Anxiety episode. Signing off.